Hello, everyone. My name is Mike, and you are watching Nature as Praxis, where we synthesize the social and the ecological and apply what we learn from nature towards becoming better individuals who can build better societies. Let's get into it. Pan-African social ecologist and anarchist Modibo Kadali has a clever way of relating Moonlight to social history. See, Moonlight is what we would call epiphenomena. Basically, epiphenomena is something we believe to be true, but isn't true in a sense of how we see it. Moonlight is epiphenomenal because it looks like the light is coming directly from the moon, when it's really sunlight reflecting off of the moon's surface. Moonlight's something we see, but it is not exactly how we see it that matters. It's what we know to be true. Modibo Kadali argues that history is the same, often lionizing the contributions of iconic individuals without crediting the mass movements that often push those figures towards their contributions. Such contributions from the individual in this case would be Moonlight. And we not only view history through this lens, but also the present. Take MAGA, for example. MAGA is the result of a bottom-up social movement, but too many people begin their analysis at the top. But within our metaphor, Donald Trump is Moonlight. He himself is nothing more than a lifeless rock with no energy. He only radiates light because of the energy of the movement behind him reflecting off of him. In the end, Trump was nothing more than a catalyst for an already existing social movement with many different pieces. See, social movements are basically complex systems. If we want to understand social movements better, we should think of them as such and study them from a standpoint of complexity science. And in the realm of what is called complexity science, which is basically the science of studying complex systems, we know that complex systems with a ton of different components working all at once produce what are called emergent properties. In complexity science, emergence happens when a system undergoes a phase transition. Think ice melting to water or water becoming vapor. But because of the complexity involved in a social system, that phase transition results in something that couldn't be predicted from the total working of the components that comprise the previous phase. Catalysts, such as Trump, are components that are introduced to a system to speed up the phase transition. Basically, the system itself became bigger than the sum of all of its parts. This describes the MAGA movement in a nutshell. Once comprised of disparate right-wing organizations, MAGA emerged as a revolutionary power with the right catalyst. And yes, liberals, bad guys can have successful revolutions as well. You have to get used to the idea that we were just on the losing end of a revolution. Sucks, right? No one would have ever predicted the exact way MAGA would have come about, whether that's Trump as the leader or the way that it completely shifted politics. But we can learn from this. Right now, the left needs to show that it can still build a society reflected by its values. In order to do that, the components of such a revolution need to be built. The conditions for such a revolution also need to be created. Any current revolution that occurs in the present will only contain the components built into modern society, which is still comprised mainly of capitalist economic policies and the violent carceral system, not to mention patriarchy, white supremacy, and incremental liberalism. We have to ask ourselves, are the conditions created for a revolution that would result in a society based on radical principles emerge from the conditions of today? I don't think so. A radical revolution won't emerge from the current conditions. We have to create them. A revolution will eventually be the result of a spontaneous emergent movement that is greater than the sum of all of its components. In this case, we should be building effective and creative decentralized movements. In the age of centralized authoritarianism, the best way to fight it is with decentralization. Building so many movements with so many leaders that cutting off any limb would never completely immobilize the animal. Literally start with you and your neighbors. And if that's not feasible, do it with a small group of friends. It's better to start somewhere than remain nowhere. But movements are also made up of individuals, which means the conditions within each individual need to be created and nurtured as well. Working on yourself to be the best you can be within a movement is part of the work. And it is also up to any organized movement to nurture the best that anyone can bring. Trust me, everyone is out here doing the best that they can. Don't make it any harder. We'll end with a lesson from C.L.R. James, who is a very interesting and important historical figure. He's a 20th century Marxist who played a key role in a lot of West Indies independence movements. He was also a Marxist whose vision of communism was more decentralized than most. In a pamphlet he wrote called Every Cook Can Govern, which was based on a saying by Lenin that every cook must learn to govern, C.L.R. James looked at Athenian democracy as a case study in direct democracy, emphasizing the belief of the Greek democrats at the time that any member of society could carry the duties of public office. It was almost ludicrous to them that anyone from the public wouldn't be able to become a successful public figure and represent the democratic principles that were instituted at the time. He also wanted to refute this idea that was common within Marxism at the time, that only a vanguard party can usher in a revolution. Basically, let's invert the hierarchy of top-down to one of bottom-up. If an incredibly flawed society replete with slavery, patriarchy, and intellectual elitism can create a moderately successful direct democracy, then we can do that as well. We are not only more intelligent, but we're more capable, more diverse, and more creative. So let's create a revolutionary movement where every person is capable of governing. Peace.